Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
He's in the building!
Drink the moment. Drink it.
I said empty your mind.
Coquettish and coy. Ow. Ow.
What?
And there's people that are dying.
The wickedly talented.
More than great. It was historic.
Crack is
What?
Oh, good for you.
I have to apologize.
One of the hottest.
Hello, and welcome back to The Reheat, a podcast that re-examines the spiciest celebrity news and scandals of yesteryear and asks, how would we react to the same events if they'd transpired today? I'm your co-host, Sarah Sahagian.
And I'm your other co-host, Sadaf Hassan. And today we are going to dive deep into the drama and the intrigue behind one of my favorite Hollywood icons, Winona Ryder. From her many great loves to her legendary career to, yes, that shoplifting episode, which was iconic in itself, if you ask me. Now, like so many, just to share a little bit of personal info on this, I became a big Winona fan at a very young age. I wanted to be her, but I think I was also maybe a little in love with her. I started out as a big fan of Johnny Depp's. RIP to that. And they were in a relationship when I took notice. He was so deeply in love with her, so I was so deeply in love with her. He had that infamous tattoo that said Winona Forever, which he changed to Wino Forever after they broke up. And I always thought I would get that tattoo. Like I would get the change tattoo that said Wino. And it would be like my dedication to them both. Fortunately, he exposed his rotten ass before I ever got there, thank God. But Winona remains my girl. Sarah, are you a Winona fan like I am? Tell me yes.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
I mean, I lusted after her pixie cut for years. I could never pull it off. I don't have her bone structure. But, I mean, she's just one of the most iconic movie stars of the first half of the 90s. So she imprinted on my brain. Like when I thought movie star as a young child, she was one of the faces that came to mind. And I'm excited to talk about her today.
Yay. Okay, well, let's start at the beginning or close to it. So Winona was born and grew up in Winona County, Minnesota, if you've ever wondered how she got her name. Her parents were pretty cool, at least it seems that way. Her mom was an editor and video producer, and her dad was a writer and bookseller and friends with psychologist Timothy Leary, who became Winona's godfather. Her parents were also friends with Allen Ginsberg, Philip K. Dick, and Aldous Huxley and his wife Laura, which is how Winona got her middle name. And all of this tells me, if anything, she had a lot of art and literature in her life and probably a lot to look up to. She also definitely had a hippie lifestyle. That probably shocks no one. When she was 7 years old, her family moved to a commune called Rainbow in California, where they lived with 7 other families on a 300-acre plot of land. There was no electricity, which meant no movies, no anything, really, and Winona read a lot. When she started junior high school, because she often had short hair, she was bullied for it, and kids called her a boy. Kids are assholes and also not very imaginative, but anyway. She found refuge in acting classes at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco, but the bullying continued even when she started acting. She told Marie Claire in 2017 after Beetlejuice came out, quote, "I remember thinking, ooh, it's like the #1 movie. This is going to make things great at school, but it made things worse. They called me a witch." Sarah, I feel like this is a pattern we've actually seen pretty often in the men and women we talk about on our show who didn't always follow the norm and stood out a little bit. They all seem to have been bullied when they were really young. I say we play armchair psychologist for a second and try and deduce why. What are your thoughts?
Bullying is interesting. I'm going to say something that I think is a little bit unpopular, but I think basically everyone as a child is bullied and everyone at some point is the bully. And some people are the victim far more often than they are the bully. But I think that everyone has a story of being marginalized and being bullied. And because that's more sympathetic, I think when journalists are telling the story of an actor or PR people are helping them shape the story, those are the anecdotes that often come up. But it does sound like Winona actually led a very eccentric childhood that was not necessarily her choice, and people often make fun of what they don't understand. So in her case, I believe she was definitely really treated very unkindly by people. But I mean, also being bullied, if you are a petty person like me, can inspire you to do great things, which is probably why a lot of really accomplished people still vividly remember being bullied, because that's their motivation.
I think so too, as a fellow petty person. I feel like the more that you stand against the norm and that you choose to be passionate about things that are different from everybody else, follow that, because that's a good thing. You don't really want to be like everybody else. And that, of course, means you will probably get ostracized in some way. That happens. But I like that you mentioned sometimes it's just the PR spin. Although I think for Winona, yeah, it was for sure true. But wait a second. Sorry, I want to back up. Were you a bully or did you bully? No, were you a bully or did you get bullied? Yes. Because you said everyone was one or the other at a time.
No, I think everyone's had both happen, right? I think that's my unpopular opinion. I think we have this victim bully binary, and I think most people have experienced both. I mean, often it skews more to one than the other. I would say, like, in school, I was bullied more than I bullied people, but I definitely at points I have looked back and realized bullied people, and I don't think I understood I was bullying people, but I was. So this is why I think that the answer to bullying is to educate kids and to ask all kids, the bully and the victim, what they're going through, and to teach them how to cope better, not just to vilify bullies. Like, a lot of media coverage of like bullies, even like 10-year-olds, vilifies the bully, which is weird because it's a child.
It is
that's
true.
just my
That's
opinion.
so true.
Were you a bully or were you bullied?
I agree with you. You know what? I've got to be honest. I don't remember going really one way or the other, but I'm sure if I did a deep dive into my history, you might be right. And there probably is something there. I remember one thing. I remember like kids would make fun of me because they said I had a really weird laugh. Like that for some reason is what stands out to me. And that really bothered me for about a year. So I tried not to laugh for a good 6 months. And then I was like, I laugh at everything. I cannot suppress my laughter. Listeners, you can let me know if my laugh is heinous or not, because you probably heard it a million times on the show. But I think it doesn't matter. I don't really care now. I don't know if that counts as bullying, but that's the one that stood out. I'm sure there's plenty of shit that I've repressed, though. I tend to do that. So anyway.
And we all repress it. I was called the old hag because people couldn't say my last name properly. They would say Sarah Sahagian.
Oh my God.
And then that was shortened to the old hag. This was when I was 8. And that was pretty mean. And then in high school, some people who were my friends, and so were not intending to bully me, like, made my nickname Armenian Genocide.
What? Oh, okay. See, now that's bullying. I don't feel like what I went through is quite.
I mean, I don't think they were intending to bully me. I think they were really just sort of ignorant, like most people are in high school. And I'm sure I said lots of ignorant stuff too. Like, I've come to terms with it and realized, like, I probably said really upsetting things to people without meaning it as well. I mean, I'm a fan of treating children like children, unless they do something extremely heinous that is, worthy of more severe punishment. Like, I mean, if they're not murdering people, I think we should lead with education. That's just my view of it.
There you go. Okay, on that note, back to Winona, who did not murder anyone, for the record. Okay, so let's get into some of her really juicy roles, because God, she's had about 1 million of them. And also, these are the ones that actually really made her so popular early on. So we talked about Beetlejuice, which of course has a sequel out right now, but we'll come back to that. Her first role was in 1986's Lucas, alongside late 80s stars Corey Haim and Charlie Sheen, of course. The LA Times called it a remarkable debut for Winona. As luck would have it, the Tim Burton watched Lucas and fell in love with Winona's performance, so he cast her in Beetlejuice 2 years later. As I hope we all know, because I hope everyone's seen this movie by now, you've had a lot of time. She played a goth teen whose chaotic family moves into a haunted house lived in by ghosts. Of course, it was a huge hit. I've watched it perhaps 1 million times. I love it so deeply. And from then on, Winona continued with this pretty singular streak. She starred in Heathers with fellow 90s heartthrob Christian Slater as high school sweethearts who start killing off the popular kids for vengeance. I'm so glad this movie hasn't been remade yet, or not really anyway. It's just God, incredible. A cult classic. I still have a poster of it in my childhood bedroom that I love so much. Anyway, her agent actually begged her to turn the role down and said it would, quote, ruin her career. But after it released, the Washington Post called her, quote, Hollywood's most impressive ingenue. Ryder makes us love her teenage murderess, a bright, funny girl with a little Bunny Parker in her. She is the most likable, best drawn young adult protagonist since the sexual innocent of Gregory's Girl. Now, just so you know, Gregory's Girl is a 1980 Scottish rom-com, which I don't know is a bit random for the Washington Post to reference. Also, the comment is just a little bit weird.
It's a deep cut.
Yeah, Sarah's got a whole look on her face. It's absolute cringe. Anyway, this established pretty early on that Winona had a specific taste in roles, and she chose what she wanted. And I really think that's what's made her such a unique personality and an actress who stood apart. Sarah, why do you think Winona chose these kinds of roles specifically?
Well, I think it probably goes back to her upbringing, right? So she was raised borderline in a bunker, right? She was raised on a commune without TV, without movies. So I feel like she wasn't in touch with what popular culture had been, which meant that her choices were more authentically her. And maybe because she had good taste or was a true artist, or maybe just by luck, she seemed to be on the forefront of what was cutting edge, and she wasn't scared of it. She wasn't making derivative choices thinking, okay, it would be safe to do a movie like X when I really want to do a movie like Y. She was just choosing authentically at the beginning of her career. Later, I actually think she started choosing a bit inauthentically, and that's where she went wrong. But no, I think a lot of it has to do with her upbringing and the fact that she didn't really know what you were supposed to do as a young Hollywood ingenue.
I think so too, and it's kind of amazing how that worked in her favor. I feel like anytime with child actors, when they haven't really been impressed upon yet, they don't have any kind of expectations. They're not trying to follow anything in particular. They're so good, and I feel like this was her at that time. Anyway, soon after those, we got Edward Scissorhands. God, yet another beloved one of mine. My God. Okay. Another Tim Burton film, this one co-starring Winona's boyfriend, Johnny Depp, who would become another one of Tim's favorites. This is the perfect time to cut into the relationship for a second, so let's do it. Now, Winona met Johnny at the 1989 premiere of Great Balls of Fire, and the two dated from 1990 to 1993. When it started, mind you, she was 18, he was 26. Yeah, and they were engaged after just 5 months of dating. They covered magazines, they starred in a movie together, they were on endless red carpets looking gorgeous. They were just kind of like this preternaturally dark, beautiful couple, and they were kind of different from, I think, what Hollywood was schlepping around. Of the relationship, Winona said Johnny was her first everything. She said, quote, I was very depressed after breaking off my engagement with him. I was embarrassingly dramatic at the time, but you have to remember I was only 19 years old. She said it was so dramatic that once she fell asleep with a lit cigarette and woke up to the flames, which feels accurate for the kind of relationship they appeared to have. Johnny, meanwhile, said, quote, it's very hard to have a personal life in this town. My relationship with Winona, it was my mistake to be as open as we were, but I thought if we were honest, it would destroy that curiosity monster. Instead, it fed it, gave people license to feel like they were part of it, which sounds a lot like Bennifer, which we've discussed in the past. Now, years later, these two don't have a romantic relationship or a platonic one, really, but in his court trials with later girlfriend Amber Heard, in which both accused each other of abuse, Winona defended him. She said, quote, I can only speak from my own experience, which was wildly different than what is being said. He was never that way towards me, never abusive at all towards me. I only know him as a really good, loving, caring guy who is very, very protective of the people that he loves. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. I'm not calling anyone a liar. I'm just saying it's difficult and upsetting for me to wrap my head around it. Look, it was a long time ago, but we were together for 4 years, and it was a big relationship for me. Imagine if someone you dated when I was 17 when I met him, was accused of that. It's funny because I feel like she kind of invalidates her own statement with that final line. But Sarah, I want to know what you think because I know you have thoughts.
Yeah, listen, every relationship is so different. People evolve over time.
Yes.
There are lots of factors that can make people abusive. And sometimes things become abusive because People aren't responding at the attempts at coercive control through emotions, or people are displaying resistance. I mean, I don't know. It's worth noting that Amber was married to Johnny and Winona wasn't. And there is a lot of evidence that some men become more abusive after marriage than they do before marriage. So that is a salient point. And also people they change over time. So I think there's no point in making a comment when an ex of yours is accused of abuse unless you have firsthand proof they didn't do it. Like, oh, he's being accused of attacking her on a night where we were actually seeing a concert together with old friends, right? Unless you actually are their alibi and you know for a fact that something didn't happen, then you have no idea what happened behind closed doors. And Winona admits that. And my comment to her would be, if you admit that you don't know what happened, why make a comment at all and say he was always nice to me? Because that just is what the Depp defenders want to hear.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of evidence that he was abusive towards Amber Heard.
Mm-hmm. Completely agreed. I don't even have a thing to add to that. I believe Winona when she says he didn't abuse her, but I also believe Amber Heard when she says he did. So I think we should just let those things two lie. And as you said, just making the statement, even if she says she wasn't there, it kind of does damage regardless. Celebrities' words carry. They do. They have weight. We've talked about this so many times. Now, as we reminisce on that moment in history, why don't we take a quick little break? We'll be right back. And we're back. Now, after Edward Scissorhands, Winona gifted us quite a few incredible movies. There was Night on Earth, Dracula, The Age of Innocence, Reality Bites, Little Women, Alien Resurrection, The Crucible, and finally, to wrap up the 90s, Girl Interrupted, which has its own lore, but I'm going to keep it short. Winona executive produced this movie and had seen it as like this major turning point in her career, and her team hoped it was going to get her a big Oscar win. But it was co-star Angelina Jolie who kind of ended up winning the whole spotlight and an Oscar. They're actually both fantastic in the movie, though, and again, hugely worth watching if you haven't. Angelina totally deserved that Oscar, but for years, the rumor is this led to a rift between the two of them, but the reality is nothing that's actually proven in fact has ever suggested that happened, and the two of them have always been respectful towards each other, so I just find that a little silly. But here's another fun fact. At the start of the decade, Winona was also set to co-star in The Godfather Part 3, but dropped out due to exhaustion, which is devastating because I would have loved to see her in that world. Anyway, it was a busy time for her. She received Oscar nominations for Age of Innocence and Little Women, and a Grammy nomination for narrating Anne Frank's The Diary of a Young Girl. All of which is to say, yes, she could totally EGOT one day. I am holding out. Sir, what do you make of this iconic run? And what was your favorite Winona movie from that period?
My favorite Winona movie is How to Make an American Quilt.
Oh, yes.
It will always be my favorite. I love intergenerational dramas. I love stories about women. That is by far my favorite. I have rewatched it, and it has flaws.
It's not, yes, but it is still great. It's such a cozy watch.
It's very gripping. I still don't know why she marries that guy in the end.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Really, it just surprises me every time that she chooses to marry him.
It pisses me off.
For no reason.
Yes. God, we really should have like these side-by-side episodes where we just talk about very old movies that we still have.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's my favorite. I also love Girl Interrupted. And by the way, that memoir, Girl Interrupted, is one of the best memoirs of the 20th century. It's an amazing book, and everyone should read it. It's really short. It's quite slim, but it packs a punch. That's also a great movie, and I really respect how she helped get it made, really, by just executive producing it and attaching herself to the project. In terms of whether she and Angelina Jolie had a rivalry, like, this is just so sexist. Angelina Jolie is accused of having a rivalry with everyone, and it's basically never true. She basically never has a rivalry with anybody. And so I think it's just because she's sexy. And anytime there's a woman who enjoys her sexuality and is talented and is successful in the public eye, we as a society feel like we need to punish her, and then we create these narratives that demonize her somehow.
Yeah.
I don't, do I think that Winona probably thought she deserved more recognition for the movie? Sure, but that's human. That doesn't mean that you think that Angelina shouldn't have won Best Supporting.
Yes.
They weren't even in competition in the same category.
No.
Like Winona would have wanted Best Actress. She was in the lead.
Correct.
Angelina was supporting. So
And by the way,
just, yeah,
Winona executive produced the movie, so a win for anyone on that team is a win for her. Angelina got the movie so much publicity. This was like Winona's, I believe she said this story, the book and the movie were her child of the heart, quote. And so I think for her, this was incredible regardless. Angelina won so much publicity for it. But I also recommend the book too, written by Susanna Case, and it's great. Sarah, you need to have a day one day in the future where you show B how to make an American quilt, and it's just like your mom-daughter movie. I feel like that'd be really sweet.
I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to that already. You should join us.
I will join. Now, at this point, until about 2005, Winona went on a 5-year hiatus. Tragically. During that time in 2001 was the shoplifting incident, and a moment that shifted her reputation in Hollywood from notable actor to crazy lady, which if you've listened at all to the read before, you know is a label we so do not subscribe to here, but let's share a little bit about what happened. As the story goes, in December of that year, she was arrested on shoplifting charges in Beverly Hills and was accused of stealing $5,500 worth of designer clothes and accessories from Saks Fifth Avenue. She hired celebrity defense attorney Mark Garagos. She was accused of using drugs, including oxy, diazepam, and Vicodin without a prescription, but prosecutors dropped a drug possession count after it was proven that a doctor provided it to her as a medical treatment. She was convicted of grand theft and shoplifting, but acquitted on the charge of burglary. In December 2002, so the year later, she was sentenced to 3 years of probation, 480 hours of community service, $3,700 in fines, and $6,355 in restitution to the Saks Fifth Avenue store, because I'm sure they needed it, in order to attend psychological counseling and drug counseling. Phew! This was also the time, by the way, because I feel like this is worth noting, that women like Reese Witherspoon and Gwyneth Paltrow reigned, if you know what I mean, and there wasn't forgiveness for more honest, real characters like Winona or Angelina, really. I was really young at the time, but I still remember she made front page news pretty much everywhere. She was ridiculed, of course, on late night shows and SNL, became a joke overnight. The truth was, as she later said, that she'd been in a difficult moment in her life and was clinically depressed, and that painkillers had been prescribed to her by a quack doctor, and they were clouding her judgment. And in fact, I bet a lot of you don't know this, Jules Mark Loosman, who prescribed the meds, then had his medical license revoked by the Medical Board of California for unethically prescribing medication to his patients, not just Winona. But, of course, no one cared about the truth. No one talked about this. Sir, do you remember any of this?
Oh, yeah. And in some ways, I feel like she took over for Monica Lewinsky as the butt of the jokes, right? This was a period where we loved to make fun of women who'd made mistakes or who had any type of emotional or psychological issues that they were dealing with, right? So you're so right that Reese Witherspoon and women like that, women who presented as type A and didn't share their vulnerabilities with you, were reigning supreme. That was what women were supposed to be like. We were supposed to be perfect. It was this really toxic time.
Yeah.
Right?
And very blonde versus brunette, right?
Yeah, you're right. That is another thing that happened. And of course, no racial diversity to speak of. And Winona, listen, it was obvious at the time she had lots of money. If you were shoplifting, something was happening, right? Yeah. And she was depressed. She was a victim of a quack doctor, right? Which has happened many times in Hollywood history, that people have been victims of these doctors that have been giving them drugs that were actually bad for them. Yeah. So it really shows you how horrible a time it was for women. And it's still a horrible time for women. It's always a horrible time for women. That's a perennial truth. But perfection was expected. If you were not perfect, you were inadequate. And that really imprinted itself on me, that you couldn't talk about mental illness, that would, even if you had severe mental illness, that wouldn't be a mitigating factor and you would be punished by society, which she was. It didn't matter how much she'd accomplished. It didn't matter how much she was struggling. People were going to make fun of her. And also, she was not going to be considered really a movie star anymore. She wasn't. She was considered the butt of the joke, right? And when you look at Robert Downey Jr., was about to have his comeback a couple years later, and he really messed up, right? And yes, he had substance use issues, and I have so much sympathy for that, but he did a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
But people were so happy for him when he got clean. And for a woman, they're not happy for you when you get clean. You're sort of dead to them the minute you have a problem.
Yes, God, well said. And I think Robert Downey Jr. also always got that hot bad boy label, right? And as I said, Winona was kind of just labeled the crazy lady. Like, she would show up on some appearances, or maybe she'd be on a red carpet, or the paparazzi would catch her and she would seem a little, I don't know, loopy. But the reality was that she wasn't doing well. And she said so many times, I'm having a tough period. Nobody was really willing to give her any grace for that. And it really is that classic celebrity trajectory we've talked about so many times. We'll probably see forever. We love you when you're up and we're going to kick you when you're down. And I think it's so devastating. She really was someone who was a Hollywood sweetheart. And then as soon as she needed space, she needed a little more love, everyone kind of revoked it and took it all back. It's so devastating. Now, after all of that drama, she ended her break, so to speak, in 2005. But one could say her career never really recovered, which I hate to say. It really is devastating. She told Marie Claire in 2017, quote, "There are definitely times when it feels like there's a real drought. It's like that line in First Wives Club, quote, there are only 3 ages for women in Hollywood: babe, district attorney, and driving Miss Daisy, or mother, which I am now." She was referring to Stranger Things, which we'll get to in a bit. Now, she starred in some great cult films in this time, like A Scanner Darkly and Sex and Death 101, but for the most part, she was grabbing up roles in what appeared to be either easy paychecks or films that just didn't seem like the kind of thing she typically do. There was Star Trek, Stay Cool, starring Hilary Duff, The Dilemma, starring Vince Vaughn and Kevin James. Winona Ryder should never have to share a billing with Kevin fucking James. I'm sorry. There was also 2013's Homefront with James Franco, for which critic Stephen Boone wrote, quote, "Ryder often seems on the verge of laughing in Franco's face as he attempts to manhandle and pimp talk her, but it's nice to see her raven eyes and regal cheekbones on a big screen again, in whatever capacity." Now, I find this quote hilarious. It's also kind of leery and doing exactly what he's saying she seems to be calling out Franco for. But let's be real, her specific look was a key part of her persona. Would you agree, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, there is a reason why pretty much all of our most successful movie stars are traditionally attractive. There's a lot of looksism in Hollywood. Right? It's not like people who are not traditionally attractive have no talent, right? Like if you go to Juilliard, it's not like only the hot people get A's, right? Like that's just an issue Hollywood has. And it's not Winona's fault at all. It's not, the fact that she is pretty privileged doesn't mean she created this whole system that privileges her. But yeah, when I think of Winona, I do think of her talent. I think of her vibe. I think of her great career choices in the first part of her career. But yes, I'm only human. I think of how just stunningly beautiful she was, because she's so striking. She almost doesn't look human. She's just this ethereal beauty. In my mind, that's such a 90s look, because you didn't have to tan in the early 90s. When we were teens, everyone was expected to spray tan, but that sort of really pale look that she had, which I just naturally have as well. I mean, not with her bone structure, but I am very pale, was held up as attractive in the 90s, and it hasn't really been since then. So I often think of her fondly, and yes, she's stunning. What do you think?
She is. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think she also did always have this sort of lost little girl look in her eyes. And I don't know, does that also make me a little predatory? I've always loved her for so many reasons. And in addition, I do just love the way that she looked. When I was a kid, I wanted to look like her. I wanted to cut my hair like hers, but knew I couldn't pull it off. I wanted to have the same eye makeup so I'd look mysterious, and I knew I couldn't pull that off, and I was too young anyway, and I wanted to dress like her. She still has incredible style. But I think, yeah, like we've said, she stood apart in style and in looks. She did not look like every other woman in Hollywood, and that was part of what made her a star. But anyway, let's cut back to her fascinating trajectory, because things did start to improve in 2015. I'd say that was also around the time we started to see actors getting to have renaissance moments where a comeback was actually considered a beautiful and positive thing, including our man RDJ. His came around, I think, 2008, 2010. For Winona, it started with the HBO miniseries Show Me a Hero and a Marc Jacobs campaign in 2016. No better way to come back. The true comeback, though, of course, came with Stranger Things, which debuted way back in 2015, even though it feels like a lifetime ago now. In it, again, if you've been living under a rock, Winona plays Joyce Byers, a single mother whose 12-year-old son, Will, vanishes mysteriously, and that's all I'll say if you haven't seen it yet. The show has been an unbelievably massive hit for Netflix and will be concluding its 5th season next year. It reintroduced Winona to a new generation and brought her back so many of her old fans in a genre that also felt true to her. Of course, more recently, she also reprised her Edward Scissorhands role in an ad with Timothée Chalamet. Please, God, he is no young Johnny Depp, so let's not do that, please. She also stars in Beetlejuice, an actually quite good sequel from Tim Burton, currently in theaters, reprising her beloved role, and she's so good in it. She's so good. Before we get back into Winona's comeback, why don't we take a break, Sarah?
Okay. Welcome back to The Reheat, Taylor's version.
Sarah, the summer is wrapping up. It's getting chillier. I actually got to wear a sweater this week, okay? And my candles are on, which means it is really only a matter of weeks until Taylor Swift makes her way to Toronto in November.
That's right, Steph. And lucky for you Swifties, thanks to Rogers, we are giving away 2 tickets to see Taylor Swift the Eras Tour when she arrives.
Please, Sarah, tell us how. Make haste.
Each week we give you a different keyword, and this week's keyword is maroon. Text maroon and your name to 925-555 to enter for your chance to win. Again, text maroon, that's MAROON, and your name to 925-555 for your chance to win.
Thanks to Rogers, the presenting sponsor of Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. Standard data and message rates apply. See contest rules linked in the description of this episode for details.
See, this way you don't have to liquidate your retirement savings to buy yourself those Eras tickets.
Please, I know you all are sweating. Your hearts are beating faster. You're guzzling your Diet Cokes in stress. But not to worry. There will be another keyword in next week's episode. The contest is 6 weeks long for up to 6 entries, which means you're not going to want to miss next week's episode. Good luck! And we're back. Now, in all this recapping, it makes me realize Winona's always had directors she can count on, usually men who have been longtime fans of hers. I'm talking, obviously, Tim Burton. There was Darren Aronofsky, who cast her in a delicious cameo in Black Swan, the Duffer Brothers, who spearhead Stranger Things, and the great, great, great David Simon, who put her in both Show Me a Hero and the 2020 HBO series, The Plot Against America. He told Vanity Fair that year, quote, Winona always had the standing of the great American ingenue. Now we're ready for the second act because she's always been a remarkable actor, always asking questions about the role, doing the research, and then feeling the camera instinctively once the work begins. It's such a great quote, and I think he's so right. I really do feel like these folks gave her the space to reclaim who she was. There's something so beautiful about that. Because again, we've talked about this quite a bit, but she was always on the fringes in a way because of her unique choices, and it wasn't totally surprising she was cast out of Hollywood so easily for these reasons. But Sarah, why do you think this is how she made her comeback? And also, is it fair to only really ever want Winona playing the goth girl forever?
I understand it. I mean, nostalgia is a powerful force. This is why Fuller House got so many seasons, right? I get that people want her to be the goth forever, but she is an extraordinary actor, and it makes sense that that's how she made her comeback based on merit, because the world doesn't give women second chances. So she can no longer really be the movie star. She's not going to get a second chance to be that icon. She is a fallen icon. So she can only really make her entry point by just being the best. And if you have not seen The Plot Against America, you should. Winona is fantastic in it. Zoe Kazan plays her sister. It's a beautiful limited series. It's a wonderful alternative history of America that makes you think. It stays with you long after. And Winona gives a very daring performance. There's no vanity in it. She really nails every scene. Yeah. It's fantastic. So I'm not surprised that directors who care about producing great work still want to work with her, because she is an incredibly underrated actor. She will do her best in every single scene. And you know what? A lot of child actors, if they stick with it, actually are underrated, because people think of them as their most iconic roles instead of as actual performers. And I think that if she had been allowed to age, if she hadn't sort of been low-key canceled 2000 style, maybe we would have come to terms with that and she'd already have an Oscar. But I'm not surprised people still want to work with her. Just look at her performances. Even if it's a terrible movie, she's totally serviceable in it. I'm thinking of Destination Wedding. She and
of course.
Another favorite, Keanu Reeves, are in this. It's an abysmal script. It's really abysmal movie, and they sell it. They are working in every scene. Their level of commitment to this drivel is something I respect. I aspire to show up at work with that energy and that professionalism every single day, no matter what I'm doing.
Sir, I will have you know, I have that movie on DVD.
Oh, really?
So anytime you'd like to come over, and we'll throw B in there too, we'll introduce her to them. Those two have such an incredible chemistry. We could go on forever. Winona had some incredible co-stars through her time. My God. But yeah, God, I'm with you. I mean, as I was writing and researching this episode, I was realizing she is one of the few actors whose resume I very nearly have seen just about every single thing, because I've always loved her so much. And if she's in something, even if it's not getting great reviews, even if it's obviously not going to be great, I want to see it because she's just so fun to watch. And even the way that she performs is very different from the average actor. She has a really unique style, and I love watching it, and I don't want to lose that. And I think you make such a good point about these directors, who, by the way, are also all really great filmmakers, people we can trust. I hope she keeps working with Tim Burton, of course, but also David Simon, who I think sees more in her than the goth girl. And to be fair, that's Tim Burton's whole genre, but I think she has a lot of pathos, and that makes sense considering her history. And I think it would be such a mistake for filmmakers not to see that and to use that. And I worry a little bit, where is her career going to go post Stranger Things? But if her team is smart, they'll make really good decisions. This is the time to do it. And I really hope she gets that Oscar one day, because I think she actually is headed towards a point in her life where she might be more creative than ever. I'd like to see it. Now, as for her relationship status, it never got as publicly hot and heavy for Winona as it did with Johnny. But, fun fact, because I feel like not a lot of people know this, she did date Matt Damon from 1998 to 2000. And while she dated him, she joined a very A-list Hollywood network just for a little while. But here, too, there was drama. In 2023, the wonderful Minnie Driver revealed that Matt had dumped her in 1998, and 3 weeks later showed up with Winona on his arm at the Oscars. Yikes. I'm gonna blame Matt for that one, though.
Yes.
One more fun fact, though. Winona did reveal recently that while filming 1992's Dracula, another must-see with Keanu Reeves, a real Romanian priest did their on-screen wedding ceremony. So they actually may be married in real life.
Oh, okay.
So there you go, Sarah. Now, since 2011, Winona has been in a relationship with a very hot fashion designer, Scott McKinley Hahn, who often is on her arm at events. She said previously she works hard to keep their relationship private after her experience with Johnny and Matt. When Winona told Harper's Bazaar in July 2024, "He's so great. He really is. I'm really lucky." She's also said she has no interest in diving into social media or proving herself anymore when it comes to her career. She said, quote, "People who I really respect talk about relevance, but I'm like, I don't care. Leave me alone." I love that for her. Don't you, Sarah? I feel like this is all such a happy ending.
I do love it for her. And it's funny, I've been thinking in the lead up to this episode, would she have been canceled today for the shoplifting incident? Would that still have happened?
That's a good question.
And unfortunately, I think it would.
I think
it would still happen. I think there'd be a vocal minority of people who had sympathy for her. But listen, we're so critical of women. Like, look at what happened to Olivia Munn because people perceived her as having stolen someone's husband a few years ago, right?
Which is a far bigger item to steal than some Saks Fifth Avenue clothing, one might say.
Yeah. Anyway, just I think she still would be portrayed this way, and I also think there would be like an eat the rich element to it because when she was shoplifting, she had the money to buy the clothes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, she was shoplifting. We now know because she had some serious mental health issues. This was a manifestation of that, not because she was greedy. But I actually think there would have been a lot of memes about like, I work so hard and I pay for everything. And then here we go, Winona Ryder, here's how much she made for her last movie. And she's stealing clothes from Saks. Like I actually think that would have been content on TikTok and Instagram. So I think she would have been canceled in a way where like the rhetoric would have been different, but it would have been just as severe. And she would have been held up as this, I guess, symbol of greed in our society. I really think that would have happened to her. And that in some ways might have been worse. I'm glad that she's come out the other end and she survived. So what do you think would have happened to her if she'd shoplifted today?
I actually agree. I think it would have been worse. And the reason is, and we've said this many times, and Winona said this many times, is because now we have social media. So like you said, there would be memes. She'd never really get to live past it. A lot of the news segments that were out then, you can't even really find anymore. I mean, obviously, you'll find the late night clips, the SNL shit, but you'll find the magazine covers and some of the newspaper covers, but it won't be quite like what it would now because none of that can be erased. I think she would have been a way bigger joke. I think she would have had a way harder time coming back, and people would have not touched her with a 10-foot pole because they'd be afraid of cancellation. So God bless that this happened at a different time. Really, her entire trajectory and who she is could not have happened at another time. She is a 90s baby in every way, down to the shoplifting crime. Like, that is not the kind of thing that happens now. It's just not. Like, it's a very blue collar, everyday kind of commoners thing, not Hollywood people. Like, they got bigger shit to handle these days. Not to say that this isn't big shit, but I think
what surprised me though, it surprised me that they actually caught her and called the police rather than just being like sort of spinning it as, all right, let's take a picture of you shopping at Saks. And today they would just be like, let's take a picture of you and put it on Instagram for likes and for free advertising. It really surprised me that the people of Saks wanted to publicly arrest Winona Ryder.
Well, also because she stole what was valued at $5,000 to $6,000. That could be like one dress.
Yeah, exactly.
At Saks,
It's just such a weird story. And the fact that she was stealing from Saks, like, she's stealing from people who can afford it. Now, it's not like she's Robin Hood. I don't think she was going to go give that dress to somebody who needed it more. I mean, somebody who needed a designer dress.
Yeah,
but, it's still, like, it's not like she's stealing from some mom and pop shop where they're barely paying the rent. I don't know. Like,
but you know what? I think that's why it's interesting because so obviously when something like this happens, my first thought is something is obviously wrong because that's how bizarre and random this is. It's very similar to when Britney Spears shaved her head. My first thought was something is wrong. But for a lot of people, the first thought is, oh, that's fucking hilarious. They're batshit. Why is that your first thought when something unusual like that happens? Obviously, something's not right. That's what we should say. But women like this are never granted that, right? I think what's going to be interesting is seeing Millie Bobby Brown's trajectory. She's the young star in Stranger Things, and the cast and so many people have said it so many times over the decade the show's been out that she's kind of following in Winona's footsteps. She's growing up in the spotlight of the social media, so I'm curious how that's going to go for her. And she's very much a child star. She also just got married at a very young age.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I hope things fare well for her. Now, this brings us to our final segment. Hindsight is 2024, where we choose the one moment that we might have handled differently if we were the subject of this story. Sir, we might agree on this, but I just wish Winona hadn't said a word for Johnny's trial. That's it. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think that is exactly what I would do too. Also, she never should have made that terrible movie Autumn in New York.
Oh, I liked that one. It's not good, but I like her and Richard Gere together.
Like, they have good chemistry, but I wouldn't have made that movie. To me, that was when she started selling out and making what she thought would be commercially successful, at least listening to her team's advice. And prioritizing commercial viability above art and what she was interested in, because she just doesn't seem into it. She's kind of sleepwalking through it.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't seem into it either, but I think he'd gotten married again late in life, and you gotta pay the bills, right? So
it's so true. It's so funny seeing celebrities do that. I can agree with you. I think she was trying maybe also to get out of the genre she was sort of stuck in, and a romance felt like the right way to go, maybe. Like a straight romance. But yeah, you're right. It's not the best movie, but I do like it. I hate to say it.
Okay. I mean, like,
you know what? You get
it's
American
fine.
Quilt, okay, and I take.
I mean, today it wouldn't have been made because it would just be a Hallmark movie, right?
It's true.
It is sad that we no longer make sort of B- dramas with good production values.
I know.
Because sometimes that's what you want to watch. Sometimes you want to watch something that's not challenging but lets you cry, so you can have that catharsis.
Like Kate and Leopold, my favorite random rom-com of that era. I know, we both do. Anyway,
that's a great movie.
Yeah, we're gonna watch that. We're gonna watch that soon.
Mm-hmm.
That brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you, as always, to our talented editor, Evan Wexler. And of course, thank you to everybody who's listening. You can listen to more of The Reheat, episodes past, episodes future, for free on the Seeker app. You can also find the show on the Frequency Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to hear more from me, you can find me at _Stephson. Sarah, where can our listeners find you?
Listeners can find me at Sarah Sahagian. And if you liked this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe so other listeners can find us too. And if you'd like us to keep growing, we'd love for you to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thereheat, where we've got some goods in store for you. Thanks for listening.